Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming a video on like my favourite Greek mythology retellings or like Greek mythology inspired books, which is really exciting. I'm really excited for this video because I remember like a year ago when I was first starting to get into classics properly, the first kind of place that I looked was Greek mythology retellings because I feel like they're just a perfect way to immerse yourself into the ancient world without, going straight into reading like Tacitus, Herodotus. It just eases you in much more nicely. The English skills on this girl are horrific. I blame this on Easter break and online teaching. My like ability to speak is just going downhill. It's going really badly downhill. But yeah, it has been a hot minute since I've recorded a YouTube video as well, so I'm very sorry about that. So yeah, without further ado, I'll start with my first kind of favourite Greek myth retelling, and it will come to no surprise to some of you, / all of you, that I'm going to recommend the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book is just incredible. I think it's one of my favourite books of all time as well, without it even being in like obviously this Greek mythology retelling category. If you're going to start anywhere with reading Greek myths and even work with the ancient world, I would just suggest that you start with this book. So Madeline Miller is just an incredible writer, and she tells the story of Patroclus and Achilles, or Patroclus and Achilles. My pronunciations are going to be so off in this video, so I'm so sorry. I'm a classic student as well. Like, this is embarrassing, but sorry, we move. So yeah, she kind of tells the story of Patroclus and Achilles and how they meet when they're younger and the events leading up to and including the Trojan War. I don't think it's a spoiler what happens in the Trojan War, but obviously if you don't know, then I'm not going to say. Kind of gives it a bit of a surprise element. But yeah, the last third of this book just absolutely made me weep, and I feel like it was a really artistic and beautiful take on the Trojan War as well. I don't know, I just love the perspective that Madeline Miller brought to it, and she's an incredible classicist, she's an incredible author. This woman has like done it all. The romance in this book as well, the characterization, her perspective on the plot of the Trojan War, I just thought was all done so incredibly. And I really, really appreciated, obviously, the fact that she painted Achilles and Patroclus as lovers, because, come on. If you're one of those old men that's sitting there right now being like, oh, yeah, no, they were friends. They were not friends. Get off it. It's rubbish. They were lovers. And we all know they were lovers. Accept it, please. It's the 21st century. Accept it. Thank you. So yeah, that is why this book is like, 10 out of 10 on my list. And then this also brings me to Madeline Miller's other published book, which I've not actually got here, I've left it at home. But that's Circa. I would say Circa isn't my favourite out of the two. This one is like my all-time favourite book, but that's because like I'm a sucker for romance. I'll always pick a romance book over any other genre, really. It's my guilty pleasure. But yeah, Circa, that's Circe, I think it's Circe, so I'm going to try and say Circe. It's all about like this young kind of witch. That's how she's portrayed in the Odyssey, and it's basically just her life story. She's the daughter of Helios, the god of the sun, and yeah, it just follows her life story. And I really, really appreciate Madeline Miller actually writing a book on her, because she's a very overlooked figure in Greek mythology, I think, even for like the women of Greek mythology, for example, and she gives that voice to like, that very marginalised group. So yeah, I just really appreciated the fact that Madeline Miller wrote, again, such a beautiful novel just on Circe's life story. So yeah, I think Madeline Miller is the perfect place to start, obviously, with reading these Greek mythology retellings. So definitely start there, in my opinion. Because we are on the theme of the Trojan War, well, we were before Circa. Let me get these babies out. This comes a bulk of 3 recommendations for Greek mythology retellings. One thing that I do probably have to comment on as well is that the bulk of like Greek mythology retellings do focus on and around the Trojan War. I think the literary genre is finally starting to move away from that a tiny bit, and then moving on to different books, like one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. But yeah, I'm not sick of the Trojan War, but I could do with a little bit of spice, spice up the ancient world. It wasn't like there was just this one war and that was it. The ancient world was full of, such a rich mythology and history and society. Like, we can spice up the literary genre, people. It's not just the Trojan War. But I am going to talk about the Trojan War now. So, I've got Cassandra by Krista Wolfe. I Have 1,000 Ships by the lovely Natalie Haynes, who also has a very, very brilliant podcast, which you should definitely all listen to, which is, I'm pretty sure it's called Stand Up for Classics. And she also did one, Ovid, Not COVID. That was clever Natalie Haynes, I love it. And then also The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. So I've actually got to admit, because of my previous rant about the Trojan War, I've not actually read these 3 books yet. But I'm kind of including them on the list because they're very, very popular Greek mythology retellings, and I know that I'm going to get around to them at some point. So I'd recommend that you obviously try them out yourself, see what you think. So yeah, I've included them on the list for that reason. I think I'm most excited for Cassandra by Krista Wolfe, because I feel like this book will kind of give a very different female perspective to the Trojan War, and because it's kind of just on Cassandra's perspective as well, that'll be very, very interesting, I think. So this is the one that I'm definitely most excited for. Some of my friends have read 1,000 Ships and Silence of the Girls. I think they quite liked them, obviously. I think these authors are trying to give a female perspective to the Trojan War. But yeah, I've definitely had some mixed reviews on these though. This video that I'm doing for you guys now, I'm not really a fan of contemporary books. I know that there's some Greek mythology retellings that are set in the modern world. I think there's Lore by Alexandra Bracken. There's quite a few. There's Home Fires. I've forgotten who the author's by, I'm so sorry. But that's not really my scene. I'm not really a fan of contemporary, the contemporary world, like the modern world as a genre. I just hate it. As you can probably tell that I study classics. I read fantasy. I read classics. That's it. I read a lot of classics fantasy, but if I had a choice, I would not choose to read contemporary. So yeah, I'd still make an honourable mention to those because I'm sure they're absolutely incredible books, but they're just not going to be included in this list today. Okay, I'm going to move on to some more romance type Greek myth retellings. So I'm going to start with A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So I'm actually in the middle of reading this now, about 100 pages in. I've included it because I think it's a pretty sound Hades and Persephone retelling, but I don't think that the writing is incredibly well done on this one. I think it's perfect for like an easy romantic, like erotic read. But my favourite Hades and Persephone retelling is a book that I've not actually got here at the moment, and that's Receiver of Many by Rachel Alexander, I believe is the author. I'll try and put a photo here again. Tech Granny, we'll see if I'll be able to do it or not. A Touch of Darkness definitely is not one of my favourite books of all time, but again, easy romantic read. But Receiver of Many, I would say, is probably one of my favourite Hades and Persephone retellings. I think it's probably like a good mix of kind of, it is an erotic book. It's a good mix of like that romance and plot. I would say if you're going to read anyone, read Receiver of Many by Rachel Alexander over that as a Hades and Persephone retelling. That brings me to my next book. This is not an explicitly Greek mythology like inspired book, but I've interpreted it that way, as I'm sure many of you who have read it will, and that is the acotar series by Sarah J Maas. So I've picked up Akamath, so I do feel like it was slightly inspired, yeah, by like the Hades and Persephone myth, but as fantasy books anyway, this series is like incredible. I would 100% recommend it to anyone that loves fantasy, loves romance. So I would just give this series a go either way. Okay, I realised that I lied earlier. I said that I didn't like contemporary books, and this is true. I don't usually like contemporary books, but I have got the Covenant series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this is one that I'm actually going to recommend for Greek mythology inspired books. I would definitely say it's more YA rather than like new adult, so I'd definitely recommend it to more younger audiences. So this book follows Alex and kind of her journey in this kind of mortal academy. Supernatural element to it as well, because these students that attend this covenant, they're descendants of the gods basically, and they fight these things called like demons, and she's also got a love interest in this called Aiden, and oh my god, Aiden, I love you so much. So yeah, I recommend this series if you are feeling a more contemporary genre vibe for your books. Romance as well, like a slow burn romance. This is perfect. A bit of a supernatural element to like a Greek mythology element. This is perfect for you. So now I'm going to move on to this beautiful... I just hit myself in the head with that. Did you? The next set of... Well, this is a set of poems actually that I'm going to recommend to you guys. Is Great Goddesses by Nikita Gill. So this is different to my other recommendations because this is actually a set of poems. And yeah, this is a kind of a set of poems which follows the Greek goddesses and kind of their journey and how they're written into like the Greek mythology. So yeah, I think this is just an absolutely beautiful collection. Really, really empowering. It's got like a feminist perspective to it. And yeah, it just shows like these Greek women, well, the Greek goddesses, are just these awesome, like powerful, like amazing people. And then this moves me on to another of the Natalie Haynes' books, and this is Pandora's Jar. So this only got released kind of recently, and I've not actually read this one yet. So yeah, in this novel, Natalie Haynes basically rewrites the Greek mythology to give the females of the mythology a voice and a perspective. So actually she focuses on like Pandora, Medea, I think Ariadne as well, Penelope, you know, all like these classic kind of Greek women that we've heard about in the Greek mythology, and she just gives them a voice to their stories as well, and she rewrites it in a bit of a historical kind of informative way as well, which I really like, because she obviously is a classicist, so she's very knowledgeable on the matter. So yeah, I'll definitely recommend this one if you're kind of after again, just like a female perspective, but definitely more of an in-depth female perspective, because obviously a lot of these women of Greek mythology aren't really given much of a voice. So this is something that I do love about Natalie Haynes and also Madeline Miller. And to be fair, a lot of these books that I have recommended here to you guys are ones that do focus on giving a voice to the women of Greek mythology, obviously because they were just lost throughout time. Later Roman authors like Ovid just chose kind of not to write them in the most pleasant way, I'm going to say. So yeah, I'll definitely recommend this one as well if you're after a more informative view from a classicist. And then that brings me just to my final two recommendations. Both of these I actually haven't read yet, but I'm really, really excited to read. And I think one of these you probably definitely haven't heard of, because I hadn't heard of it before I saw it in Daunt Books, which is this amazing bookstore in London. I'd 100% recommend you go if you're in the London area. So this book, I think I've talked about it once before in one of my videos. It's The Embroidered Armour by Roberto Perigalli. So Perigalli, he was very inspired by Greek mythology and legends. So in this book, he decided to try and like link ancient Greek concepts of wisdom and philosophy to these ancient characters. So he definitely provides a very refreshing and kind of, I would definitely say more intellectual, more academic take on Greek mythology. So if you're after something like that, you know, more academic, more focused on the philosophy and linking of kind of wisdom and philosophical, like ancient philosophical thoughts with these ancient Greek figures, like mythology figures, then I would 100% recommend this one to you guys. And then my final Greek mythology inspired recommendation is The Marriage of Cadmus and Harmony by Roberto Calasso. This book just looks incredible. I think it's kind of verified as like a new classic as well on its own, because the way that Roberto Calasso writes is just exquisite. It's just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I can't wait to like properly get stuck into this book. So yeah, this is kind of his take on the Greek myths. And I think he also kind of weaves in a lot of modern philosophical thoughts, obviously as a modern author, 20th century author, trying to create a narrative to retell these ancient Greek myths. So it's going to be a very, very interesting one. And it's very similar to the other one which I just showed you as well. Both are just very, very perfect, more academic pieces probably for you to get stuck into Greek mythology wise. But yeah, this one I'm very, very looking forward to, just because of the writing style I've heard is just absolutely like unbeaten. It's gorgeous. So yeah, I really, really can't wait to read this one. Okay, and that brings me to the end of the video. God, this is actually very heavy. overestimated how heavy this would be. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want me to go in depth on any more of these books, then just let me know in the comments. But yeah, I hope this was a well-rounded kind of video for you guys. I think I definitely tried to include some books as well, which are some of my favourite Greek mythology retellings, but also ones that I've not seen in other videos, just to try and give you guys more genres to work through, more academic pieces, and just like a range of Greek mythology retellings, really. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a lovely, lovely weekend. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.